There is a quiet, almost imperceptible moment in the early morning when you walk out to your garden, coffee mug in hand, expecting to see the vibrant green growth of your hard work, only to notice something is deeply wrong. You bend down, turn over a leaf on your prized heirloom tomato plant, and your heart sinks. The leaves are curling slightly at the edges, showing a strange mottled yellow pattern. Upon closer inspection, you spot them. Hundreds of tiny translucent pests clustered along the tender green stems and the undersides of the leaves. These are aphids and spider mites, the bane of every backyard gardener from coast to coast. They do not just sit there, they are actively draining the very life force of your plants. These tiny invaders survive by piercing the delicate plant tissues with needle-like mouthparts, sucking out the nutrient-rich sap. When their populations explode, this constant feeding rapidly saps the vitality of your crops. You will start to notice stunted growth, distorted or curling leaves, a sudden drop in flowering, and ultimately, a disappointing harvest of small, lackluster fruit. It is a frustrating battle that can make even the most passionate grower want to throw in the towel. Most gardeners don't know this, but the solution to this devastating problem might be sitting right in your kitchen pantry, tucked away behind the baking spices. It is a humble, inexpensive white powder that you probably use to bake cookies or deodorize your refrigerator. Baking soda, scientifically known as sodium bicarbonate. For generations, seasoned homesteaders and organic growers have whispered about the wonders of baking soda in the garden. Some swear by it as a natural, non-toxic shield against destructive pests. Others believe it holds the secret to unlocking the sweetest, most flavorful tomatoes you have ever tasted. But before you run out to your garden and start scattering this white powder everywhere, you need to understand the science of how it actually interacts with your plants. Using it incorrectly can do far more harm than good, turning a potential miracle cure into a recipe for leaf burn and soil damage. Here is where the real secret begins. Baking soda is not a chemical pesticide that poisons insects on contact. Instead, it works by subtly altering the environment on the surface of your plant's leaves. When applied correctly, it creates a mildly alkaline barrier. Most soft-bodied pests, as well as many destructive fungal spores, thrive in a very specific, slightly acidic to neutral pH range. By shifting the pH of the leaf surface to a more alkaline state, you make your plants incredibly inhospitable to these invaders. But how do we harness this simple chemical reaction without shocking the delicate tissues of our vegetable crops? The key lies in a very precise, time-tested recipe that balances the power of sodium bicarbonate with protective elements that keep your plants safe. What happened next surprised me when I first tried this method years ago on a row of struggling bell peppers that were completely covered in sticky honeydew left behind by aphids. Within days of a proper application, the pest population plummeted and the plants began pushing out lush, vibrant new growth. To achieve these kinds of results, you must master the art of the application, starting with a clean, balanced mixture. To create the ultimate organic leaf shield, you do not need expensive equipment or complex chemical compounds. You only need three simple ingredients, but they must be combined with absolute precision. This is the step many people skip, and it often leads to ruined foliage and disappointed hopes. Start by sourcing 1 liter of clean, lukewarm water. If you are using tap water, it is highly recommended to let it sit out in an open container for 24 hours beforehand. This simple trick allows any residual chlorine to evaporate, ensuring that you are not introducing harsh chemicals to your delicate plant leaves. Pour this water into a clean glass jar or a high-quality spray bottle. Next, you will add exactly 1 teaspoon, which is approximately 5 grams, of pure baking soda. Do not use baking powder, as it contains cornstarch and acidifying agents that will completely ruin the chemical balance of your spray. As you add the white powder to the water, you will notice it settles at the bottom. Now we must introduce the secret weapon that makes this entire solution work, a mild, non-harsh dish soap. You only need 3 to 5 drops. This tiny amount of soap acts as a surfactant. Without it, the water and baking soda mixture would simply beat up and roll right off the slick, waxy surface of your plant's leaves, leaving them completely unprotected. The soap reduces the surface tension of the liquid, allowing it to spread out into a thin, uniform sheet that clings to the foliage. However, you must be extremely cautious here. Do not use concentrated industrial detergents, antibacterial soaps, or dishwashing liquids with heavy synthetic fragrances and degreasers. These harsh chemicals will strip away the natural waxy cuticle of your plant's leaves, leaving them completely vulnerable to dehydration, sun scald, and disease. Stick to a basic, gentle, biodegradable Castile soap or a mild baby soap. Once your ingredients are in the container, stir or shake the mixture thoroughly until every single grain of baking soda is completely dissolved. If you skip this step, the undissolved powder will clog your spray nozzle, or worse, create highly concentrated pockets of alkalinity that will scorch your plants when sprayed. The results became visible just days later when I first used this precise formulation on my cucumber vines. But the magic doesn't just happen because of the ingredients. It is all about how and when you apply it. When you are ready to spray, shake your bottle gently once more to ensure the mixture is fully emulsified. When applying the solution, do not just spray the tops of the leaves and call it a day. Pests like aphids and spider mites are incredibly clever. They hide in the shadows, colonizing the undersides of the leaves, the tender young shoots, and the tight crevices where the leaves join the stem. You must systematically coat these hidden areas. Timing is also absolutely critical. Never under any circumstances spray your plants during the heat of the day when the sun is beating down. High temperatures combined with wet leaf surfaces act like a magnifying glass, focusing the sun's rays and causing severe phototoxicity, which manifests as ugly brown, crispy patches on your leaves. Instead, wait until the early morning hours, just as the sun is rising, or better yet, the late afternoon when the intense heat has passed. This gives the solution ample time to dry slowly and perform its protective duties without the risk of burning your garden. While using baking soda as a foliar spray is a highly effective way to manage soft-bodied pests, there is another, much more mysterious gardening tip that has been passed down through generations of tomato growers. It involves applying baking soda directly to the soil around the root zone of your tomato plants. The theory behind this practice is fascinating. Many veteran growers believe that because baking soda is mildly alkaline, applying a small amount to the soil can reduce the acidity of the earth immediately surrounding the roots. In turn, this shift in soil chemistry is said to influence the metabolic processes of the tomato plant, resulting in sweeter, more flavorful fruit at harvest time. But before you go dumping cups of baking soda around your tomato patch, we need to look at the delicate balance of soil science. Tomato plants naturally prefer a slightly acidic soil pH, typically between 6.2 and 6.8. This specific acidity range is the sweet spot that allows the plant's roots to easily absorb essential nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and especially calcium. If you introduce too much alkalinity to the soil, you can inadvertently lock up these vital nutrients, making them completely inaccessible to the plant. One of the most common signs of a nutrient lockup caused by improper soil pH is the dreaded blossom end rot. This is a heartbreaking condition where the bottom of your developing tomatoes turns into a black, leathery, sunken mess. This is not caused by a disease, but rather by a lack of calcium absorption, which can be triggered by an excess of sodium in the soil. Furthermore, baking soda is sodium bicarbonate. The sodium part of that equation is something you must treat with extreme caution. Over time, repeated or heavy applications of baking soda will lead to a buildup of sodium ions in your soil structure. High sodium levels destroy soil tilth, prevent proper water infiltration, and can actually dehydrate your plant's roots through osmotic pressure, leading to yellowing leaves, stunted growth, and a slow, painful decline. So how do the old-timers use this method successfully without destroying their soil? The secret lies in a microscopic dose and very infrequent application. If you want to experiment with this method in your own garden, you must limit yourself to a mere quarter of a teaspoon of baking soda per plant. Here is the exact technique. Measure out your quarter teaspoon of baking soda. Do not pour it directly onto the stem of the plant. Instead, gently sprinkle it in a wide ring around the root zone, keeping it at least 10 to 15 centimeters, about 4 to 6 inches, away from the main base of the plant. Once the powder is lightly dusted onto the soil surface, Use a hand cultivator to gently scratch it into the top centimeter of the soil. Immediately follow this up with a moderate watering. This helps dissolve the sodium bicarbonate and disperses it evenly and deeply throughout the root zone, preventing a highly concentrated crust from forming on the surface. This soil treatment should never be a weekly or even a monthly routine. At most, it should only be applied 2 or 3 times throughout the entire growing season. Once when the plant is established, once when it begins to flower, and perhaps one final time as the first green fruits begin to set. As you begin to implement these baking soda techniques in your daily gardening routine, you must become an active observer in your own backyard. Gardening is not a one-size-fits-all science. It is an ongoing conversation between you, your plants, and the soil. When you apply the foliar spray for pests, do not expect them to instantly drop dead. Because baking soda works by creating an unfavorable alkaline environment rather than acting as a chemical poison, the transformation happens gradually. Over the course of 3 to 5 days, you will begin to notice a steady decline in the pest population. The aphids will stop multiplying, and the spider mites will begin to abandon the treated leaves. To maintain this protective barrier, you will need to repeat the application every 7 to 10 days, or immediately after a heavy rainfall, which will naturally wash the protective film off the leaves. Within 2 weeks of consistent, careful application, the results will speak for themselves. You will see your plants pushing out clean, vibrant green leaves that are free from the puckering and yellowing caused by sap-sucking pests. If you are experimenting with the soil application for your tomatoes, keep a very close eye on the health of your foliage. If you notice the lower leaves starting to turn a pale, sickly yellow while the veins remain green, or if you spot the early signs of blossom end rot on your first cluster of fruit, stop the baking soda applications immediately. This is your plant's way of telling you that the soil chemistry has shifted too far and the roots are struggling to draw up nutrients. However, if you have applied the microdose correctly, you may find yourself harvesting some of the most robust, beautifully balanced tomatoes you have ever grown. While science suggests that tomato sweetness is largely determined by genetics, sunlight, and proper watering practices, many home gardeners firmly believe that this subtle soil tweak gives their harvest that rich, old-fashioned flavor that you simply cannot buy at a grocery store. The true joy of gardening lies in this very process of observation, experimentation, and learning from the wisdom of those who came before us. By understanding the delicate balance of chemistry in your garden, you can turn a simple, everyday kitchen ingredient into a powerful tool for growing a lush, bountiful, and completely organic harvest. If you found these time-tested gardening secrets helpful and want to continue mastering the art of growing your own food naturally, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your fellow gardeners. I would love to hear about your own experiences in the comments below. Have you ever tried using baking soda in your garden? And what kind of results did you see? Let's keep the conversation going, and I will see you in the next video. Happy gardening!